and is left paralyzed.
It's very badly crushed here.
Surgeons attempt radical surgery to save his life. Don't miss Trauma, Life in the ER, Tuesday at 8 on TLC. This December, cozy up to a warm fire and settle in for a whole month of Junkyard Wars. The battles begin December 6th and it's hit or miss, sink or swim, and winner take all. Junkyard Wars, Wednesday at 8 on TLC.
Hello, I'm Rick Ellenberger, CEO of Broadwing. Last year, I told you how to get 30 minutes of free long distance every month from Cincinnati Bell. Since then, over 300,000 of you have saved millions. Now I'm announcing an even bigger offer for business customers. Up to 50% off long distance just for trying Broadwing's advanced data and internet solutions. It's our gift to Cincinnati businesses and another chance to save millions from Cincinnati Bell.
Winter or summer, turn to Airtron Heating and Air Conditioning for all your home comfort needs. For over 30 years, Airtron's been the one to turn to in Cincinnati. Come visit Airtron's Comfort Center and compare your existing system's efficiency. Right now, get $300 off a Bryant high-efficiency system. They're all covered with a 100% warranty, and our service is available 24 hours a day. Proven, dependable Airtron. Comfort you can count on. Call today and set up a free in-home estimate.
I had everything I needed for the first human mummification in 2,000 years, except the body. For that, I needed the help of Ron Wade. As a child, Ron mummified a rat as a science project. My kind of kid. Today, as director of Maryland's State Anatomy Board, he provides surgeons with cadavers to work out life-saving procedures. Not only did I get the body, I got something far more important. Ron is a co-worker. But no one had done anything like this in 2,000 years, and neither of us were sure it would work. The plan was to replicate, in every detail, a top-of-the-line ancient mummification, one that would have been used for a king. The first surgical procedure was to remove the brain through the nose. Ron and I inserted a long, straight instrument into the nasal cavity and tapped it till it broke through into the cranium. Then we took a tool shaped like a bent coat hanger and rotated it in the cranium till the brain was practically liquid, so that when we turned the cadaver over, it ran out the nose. I'm pretty sure that that's how the Egyptians did it. The second surgical procedure was the removal of the internal organs. Herodotus, our Snoopy Greek tourist, says the Egyptians used obsidian for the incision. And I think he was right. When I tried the obsidian blade, it was actually sharper than any scalpel I had ever used. But I think this is well. The abdominal incisions on mummies are small, only about 3 inches. But the liver is a very large organ. Can you get it out through such a small incision? Eventually the liver came out, but it wasn't easy. Now the body had to be dehydrated as quickly as possible. That's where the natron came in. We rinsed the abdominal cavity with our Nigerian palm wine and inserted chunks of incense from the spice bazaar. The body was entirely covered with natron to help dehydrate quickly. But for how long? Yeah, I'm going to give you a jar when you're covered. The Bible gives a clue. It tells us that Jacob died in Egypt and was mourned for 70 days. But the mummification took 40 days. Some of those days were taken up with surgical procedures and the wrapping. So we figured 35 days in natron would be about right. The cadaver was placed in a controlled environment, much like the Valley of the Kings. The temperature was kept constant at about 105 degrees, with the humidity around 25. Did you ever wonder why a mummy looks like it does? Is it the result of the embalming? Or is it the result of 3,000 years in a tomb? No one knew, but our experiment would settle that. When we returned and began removing the natron, which had caked solid, the mummy's hand emerged first. And as the rest of the body became visible, it was remarkable how much like an ancient Egyptian mummy it looked. Now we knew it was the result of embalming that made a mummy appear as it does, not the thousands of years. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. The mummy still had a little moisture in it. We could feel it in the larger muscles. Was the 35 days not enough time? We decided to put the mummy back in the tomb to dehydrate it completely. More than a month later, when we began the final wrapping, we got the surprise. Ron and I had decided to wrap it like a royal mummy, with the hands crossed over the chest. But we couldn't do it. The totally dehydrated mummy was too stiff.
The shoulder's got to come up.
It's cracking, right?
Yeah, that's the skin cracking. Try the other one.
That's why the embalmers took the body out of natron after 35 days. The mummy was mostly dehydrated, so it wouldn't decay, but there was just enough moisture so it could be easily manipulated for wrapping.
While we were doing it, it was more a surgical procedure. We weren't emotionally involved, we were just doing the job. But seeing the mummy and seeing that it really looked like a mummy, that was really quite something.
We didn't just get a mummy. We obtained a lot of information about tools and surgical techniques used in ancient Egyptian mummification. But the project isn't over. Today, friends at St. Luke's Hospital in Bethlehem, PA, are using cutting-edge technology designed for living patients to CAT scan the mummy Ron Wade and I made.
Just so we have it.
That's good. A CAT scan is a series of thin X-rays that can be manipulated by a computer.
And now we can actually look
at his workstation. John Posh takes the information from the scan and reconstructs the face in 3 dimensions on the screen.
You know, when we went in, we broke through both sides, and we just want to see what the damage looks like. We can compare it with an ancient mummy, and then if the ancient mummy looks like our mummy, then we know they went bilaterally.
And you know, right? You know a lot more.
Posh's space-age scanner allows us to look into the past and figure out how the Egyptians did it. Do the broken nose bones in our mummy look like those in an ancient Egyptian mummy?
Right here, actually, where that little cursor is where they went in through the nose anteriorly and broke right through the skull. And you can see it right here.
Yeah, we'd love it.
We've got a match. Now we know for sure how the Egyptians removed the brain. This is just the beginning of scientific studies on our mummy. He'll be around for a long time, and he doesn't have to worry about tomb robbers. Tomb robbers. That's the only reason we have the Valley of the Kings. Centuries after the pyramids were built, the Egyptians were burying their pharaohs here, in the Valley of the Kings, on the west bank of the Nile, where the sun dies every day, the place of the dead. You see, the later kings of Egypt knew that pyramids didn't do the job. They were all robbed. So here, in this remote spot, the pharaohs hoped their tombs would remain undisturbed. Not far from their tombs, they built their mortuary temples, where priests made offerings for the soul of their dead king, while the mummy rested in the Valley of the Kings. The valley's the boardwalk and park place of archaeology. The place every excavator wants to land. For centuries, adventurers searched the barren valley for hidden tombs. But no pharaoh's mummy was ever found. Then, in 1881, one of the most amazing archaeological discoveries in history changed all that. Big time.
Unwrapped, the mysterious world of mummies, is brought to you by T. Rowe Price, helping you invest with confidence for over 60 years, and by Audi.
Yeah, it was amazing. Whole different world. You were a volunteer? Yeah. I saw a world that wasn't so fortunate, that needed help. In business, I see a world full of opportunity. To help me take advantage of those opportunities, I invest in international funds with T. Rowe Price. I chose them because they work with analysts all over the world. See, I know what a difference being there can actually make.
T. Rowe Price, helping people invest with confidence for over 60 years.
In my car, my dog is no longer fat and slow. He is a god. A fast, beautiful, drooling god.
So all you need to do is hook up your Model A43 desktops to a bunch of 148-2 MIPS-C1 Ethernet connectors. Then you add your 44 GIPS stop-to-fiber USB SCSI cables to your eServer's application engine architecture on the LAN Opta branch. You're supporting the Delta, and naturally the whole thing's uplinked to the multi-task.
Fortunately, 3Com's new line of networking products are engineered to be understandable, so you'll quickly figure out how to get the most out of the internet.
Still with me? Good, because now it gets complicated. You take your Gigaline Hexport Mega switches...
3Com. Simple sets you free.
Picture this, a life without worry, where problems are quickly solved. Picture a future that's financially secure for you and the ones you love. Picture Nationwide, with auto, home, and life insurance products to protect what you hold dear, and retirement planning to help you prepare for your future. If you can picture it, Nationwide can too. Nationwide, insurance, financial services on your side.
An equal housing opportunity insurer.
I used to think the casino business was easy. You open your doors and people give you their money. Then Hoyle comes out with this casino gang. Now we're working long hours just to keep up. What? Hoyle gives them real casino action, real blackjack, roulette, poker, and slots. What's worse, they get so good, they can clean us out. Sweet dreams. It upsets me.
Hoyle Casino, the best-selling casino game, available for PC, Game Boy Color, Dreamcast, and Mac. Rated for everyone.
TLC has Mummies online, broadband features, an interactive timeline, and a place to post your questions to host Dr. Bob Breyer. Go to discovery.com and click on TLC.
This December, get ready for a whole month of Junkyard Wars. Scavenging. Look what we have here. Smashing. It's a monster. Sinking. Junkyard Wars, Wednesday at 8 on TLC.
Ice core samples may indicate why an ancient Peruvian culture resorted to human sacrifice to get the gods to stop the rain. A rather lethal El Nino. The Pyramid of Doom, Tuesday, December 19th on TLC.
Where can you find the most interesting gifts this holiday? Come to discovery.com and click on Store. For gifts the whole family will enjoy, check out our wide selection of telescopes and stargazing tools. Or find a truly unique gift for that special person on your list. And we've spotlighted our hottest gifts for him, for her, or for kids to make your shopping easier than ever. Take a look at some of this year's favorite toys. Give the gift of discovery. Come to discovery.com and click on Store.
The Egyptian Museum in Cairo is visited by millions of tourists. But there's a quiet corner on the second floor that tourists hardly notice in their rush to see Tutankhamun's treasures. But these mummy cases tell an incredible story. At the end of the 19th century, fabulous antiquities began appearing on the market. Someone had found a royal tomb. An inspector from the Antiquities Service was dispatched from Cairo to locate the tomb before it was completely plundered. A family of local tomb robbers was questioned, and 2 brothers tortured before the location was revealed. A winding path led to the hidden tomb. The Valley of the Kings is just over that ridge. The tomb-robbing brothers led the inspector to this pit, and using ropes, they lowered themselves down. I've always wanted to see this tomb. It's been sealed for decades. Tamam! At the bottom, a tunnel led into the tomb. The inspector could not believe what he saw. Along the walls were coffins containing the mummies of some of the greatest kings of Egypt. There was the mummies of Tutmosis III, the great warrior, Ramses the Great, the pharaoh of the Exodus, and his father, Seti I. But there was more to come.
It's hard to believe that all the coffins came through here. This is a rather cramped space.
A second room held the coffins and mummies of still more kings and queens.
That's a dangerous room. The blocks on the floor there, those are from the ceiling. They fell down.
Thank God the coffins and mummies were discovered before the ceiling fell. How did this convention of royalty come together in one tomb? The answer is robbers. When Egypt began to decline, the royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings could no longer be guarded. The pharaoh, Pinagem II, ordered an inventory of the royal tombs and found that nearly all had been robbed. So he had all the remaining mummies gathered together and buried in a secret tomb, where they remained undisturbed for 3,000 years. After their discovery, they were hurriedly taken out of the tomb because the authorities were worried about local people's reaction to losing such great treasures. All the royal mummies were carried down to the Nile, mourned by local women, just as in ancient times. Today, they rest in peace in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Royal mummies are rare, but once in a while, even today, one is found. You'll see. I want to show you the mummy of a queen. This is the excavation of a friend of mine, Dr. Dieter Arnold of New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. He's one of the greatest excavators of our time. We're going into Queen Weret's pyramid. The pyramid was above ground, but her mummy was actually buried 30 feet below it, here in this tomb. Welcome to my day at the office. When the Metropolitan's excavation team opened the tomb, they found the mummy had been ripped apart by tomb robbers and scattered all over the burial chamber. That was the problem with pyramids. They stood out like huge "rob me" signs. But let me show you what's left of Queen Weret. She's in a side chamber in storage.
I want to do a little bit of Mummy 101 with you. I want to show you how much you can learn from a mummy. Even a badly damaged one like this. This is Queen Weret. Now, look at the line over here on the skull. It's very faint. I know you can hardly see it, but that's how you tell how old she was when she died. You see, the cranium is made up of several bones. And when you're young, they kind of knit together like this. They're loose, a little resiliency like shock absorbers. But when you get old, into your 70s, they're tightly knit. And that's Queen Weret. That's why this is so faint. She was in her 70s when she died. Now, let me put the queen back, and I want to show you another bone. I want to show you some bones from her leg and her arm. Now, these are what we call gracile. They are very delicate. What that means is the queen didn't do any work. She had very little muscle, and therefore the bone is very thin. When I imagine Werrett, I sort of imagine her, she's a queen, carried around everywhere on a sedan chair. You know, she hardly did anything for herself. I measured these bones, and from these I can figure out that she was about 4'10", which is small by our standards, but it was normal for an ancient Egyptian woman. So I kind of get this image of Werrett. She's carried around on a sedan chair, little bird-like creature. But that's what mummy studies are about, figuring out what ancient people were like.
Remember the Valley of the Kings, Mummy Heaven? This is where the kings of Egypt really spent their money, building incredible tombs. A pharaoh's tomb served two purposes. First, it had to protect the mummy. Remember, the Egyptians believed they were going to get up and go again in the next world, so you would need your body. But the tomb was also a place where you stored all your treasures until it was time to move on to the next world. If you had a lot of stuff, you needed a big tomb. The pharaohs continued work on their tombs until the day they died. I think there was a superstition that if the tomb was completed, the king would die. So almost all the king's tombs are unfinished. That's great, because you can see how a tomb was decorated.
Once they smoothed the wall, the draftsman would come in and put down a red grid. You can see it over here. That was so they could get the proportions right. See, shoulders are a little less than 2 boxes, the head's just 1. Look over here. An apprentice drew in the figure in red. But the master came in and said, nope, it's too big. It's almost the same size as the god. So he came in and drew the smaller figure in black. Finally, when they've got it in black, then the sculptor comes in and he starts chiseling the wall away around the outline so you get a nice relief. What's neat about this tomb is you can see just when they stopped. Look over here. The sculptor started to sculpt out these little border figures, and he got to here. And then word reached him. The pharaoh was dead. So 3,000 years ago, he put down his chisel, put down his hammer, walked away, and never came back.
Once this room was packed with treasures, everything a king needed for the next world. Tutankhamun brought his chariots, thrones, and beds. Royal tombs are fantastic, but I really like the tombs of the non-royals. They show what everyday life was like in ancient Egypt. You don't have to go to Egypt to see what the average person wanted to take with them to the next world. The city of Turin, Italy, has an incredible Egyptian museum. It's one of my favorite places. Outside of Egypt, it doesn't get much better than this. And it has a complete tomb of somebody I can identify with.
That's the owner of the tomb over there, Ka. He was an architect. You see him? He's smelling a lotus. And right behind him is his wife, Merit. But look under the chair. Can you see what it is? That's her mirror in the front, and behind it is her makeup. She was going to the next world with her cosmetics. Now, they weren't just going to take cosmetics. They were going to take everything, their furniture. But look over here. This is their game board. They probably played it in the evenings. It's a little bit like backgammon. You'd throw sticks, and that would determine how many pieces you would move, how many squares. And you see behind it? Those are the stools that they sat on when they played it in the evening. It's kind of like they really believed that the next world would be like this one. It was sort of bring your own tennis racket. And over here, that's bread. It's stale by now, but it was their ticket to the next world. These were gifts for the gods. Can you see what's sculpted on that one over there? It's an ear, so the gods would hear their prayers. Going to the next world was kind of like packing for a trip to a place you've never been. So you tried to take everything. Here are their clothes. Take a look at this one over here, this tunic. If you look closely, you can see it's been mended. They really wore them. And over here, that's Ka's laundry mark. He wanted to make sure he got the right shirts back. But let me show you what was probably Ka's favorite object in this world and the next. His cubit stick. Remember, he was an architect. He was going to work in the next world, and he would need this. It was like a yardstick. Now, it's gold. It was given to him by the king for years of devoted service. It's kind of like his gold pocket watch, and he wasn't leaving this world without it.
These things aren't as glitzy as Tutankhamun's, but I can really identify with this stuff. It was kind of cozy in the tomb, filled with all your favorite things. Once, there were thousands of tombs like this one, complete. A little window into an ancient life. But today, the tomb of Kai and Merit is unique. Tomb robbers found almost all the others. What the ancient Egyptians really needed was the mummy's curse.
They mustn't touch it, Effendi. There's a curse upon it.
Oh, bosh.
It means death to whoever breaks that seal.
We can't stop now for a lot of silly native superstition.
I have waited a long time for this moment.
You want credit for being out there? For knowing which way the cyber wind's blowing? Well, here it is. The Smart Visa card from First USA. Use it online. Use it off. It's the only card you need. The Smart Visa is cyber safe. Cyber now. It has a smart chip inside that makes online shopping faster and easier. I'd get one if I were you. There's a super low intro rate and no annual fee. Other cards have that. But what they don't have is silicon. This chip stores all your personal info. Site passwords, profiles, mailing addresses, everything. And it sort of flashes it whenever you use the card. That means you're not inputting all this stuff over and over. And you're not leaving it out in cyberspace either. It stays in the smart chip on your smart card. Safe and secure. When you're approved, you can get a free smart card reader. It's how you use your card online to maximum benefit. Apply now. Transfer balance and get a super low 1.9% APR for 6 months. After that, you move to a rate that's still real low. Plus, Smart Visa gives you 5% cashback savings at e-merchants like Amazon, Bluefly, eToys, and more. Get fail-safe fraud protection, get online billing too. This card is there. It's everywhere. This smart card's a Visa, accepted at 19 million locations worldwide. You'll have a credit line from $5,000 to $100,000. Dedicated 24/7 card member service, and no annual fee. Listen, smart chip technology, it's getting smarter every day. There's even cooler stuff coming, and you can upgrade your card from home. So if you want what's next, first, get the Smart Visa card from First USA. Call and apply now, or visit ordersmartvisa.com. Get a super low intro rate, no annual fee, cybersecurity, and the future.
Coming up next, mummy icons, skeleton chandeliers, cadaver art from Eva Perón to anatomical artists. Bob Breyer shows you how they did it and why when Unwrapped, the mysterious world of mummies continues next on TLC.
Hello, I'm Rick Ellenberger, CEO of Broadwing. Last year, I told you how to get 30 minutes of free long distance every month from Cincinnati Bell. Since then, over 300,000 of you have saved millions. Now I'm announcing an even bigger offer for business customers. Up to 50% off long distance just for trying Broadwing's advanced data and internet solutions. It's our gift to Cincinnati businesses and another chance to save millions from Cincinnati Bell.
I am the ghost of Christmas past. Your husband is tired of getting bad gifts. Get him what he really wants. A phone from Verizon. Wireless.
Come back to bed, sweetie.
Get the gift people really want. Get Verizon Wireless with 1,100 minutes for $19.99 a month.
We all know about mummies' curses. An archaeologist opens an ancient tomb, and one by one, the mummy kills the members of the expedition. That's really more Hollywood than Egyptian. There were hardly any real tomb curses in Egypt. Let me show you one of the few real ancient Egyptian tomb curses. Don't be afraid. This is the tomb of Khenti Ka. He was a big deal in his time. He was the vizier, the prime minister. Kentika had lots of titles. My favorite's over here. It's Overseer of the Secrets. But the curse is over here. Kentika talks about an unauthorized person entering his tomb, and he says, "I shall wring his neck like a bird. I shall cast fear into him." Pretty good, huh? But you know, of the thousands and thousands of tombs in Egypt, this is the only one I've ever seen with a real curse on it. There are no curses in any of the pyramids. There is no curse on the walls of Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings. But the myth of the curse did start there in the 1920s. Soon after the burial chamber was opened, the expedition's benefactor, Lord Carnarvon, died in Cairo from an infected mosquito bite. He's really the only one who died soon after the tomb opening. And we know why he died. But the excavators had given the exclusive story of their discoveries to only one newspaper. So the other reporters, desperate for something to write about, invented the curse of King Tut. Along the coastline of Chile and Peru, simple fishing communities were creating mummies 3,000 years before Tutankhamun was born. Huge sand dunes plunge down to the Pacific Ocean. It's a dramatic landscape, and it's ideal conditions for mummies. The rich sea life provided plenty of food for ancient coastal communities, and they flourished. The high desert plain provided the ideal dry burial ground, so the bodies were preserved. For more than a century, archaeologists have been uncovering mummies up and down the South American coast. So it was no big news when mummies were discovered on Chile's Chinchorro Beach. For years, they remained just a minor addition to the hordes of South American mummies. But when new techniques for dating ancient artifacts were applied to the Chinchorro mummies, they became the stars of the mummy world. This baby is the first mummy ever made. It's almost 6,000 years old. Think about it. When the pyramids were being built, this mummy was already ancient. But it doesn't look exactly like a mummy, does it? It's more like a statue. I don't think the Chinchorro ever thought it was going to get up and go again in the next world, like the Egyptians did. I think they had something else in mind. They wanted to keep their loved ones with them. So when this little baby died, they mummified it. They took out the internal organs, took the flesh off the bones, and prepared a mummy. Look over here, you can see how they did it. They took vegetable fiber and mud and fashioned the body. They even have a little nose, and the mouth is there, like it's ready to feed. In a sense, they didn't lose their baby. The Chinchorro fashioned the oldest mummies in the world because they wanted to keep old friends and families with them. And one of the newest mummies in the world was created for just the same reason. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, lawyer, founder of the Soviet Communist Party, leader of millions, and one of the best preserved mummies in the world. Lying in his mausoleum in Moscow's Red Square, he's been visited by millions. To the Russians, Lenin was George Washington and Abraham Lincoln all rolled into one. But the last few years of the man who led the Russian Revolution were plagued by illness and dementia. Hardening of the arteries led to uncontrollable fits of laughter, sudden losses of consciousness, and in the end, an inability to speak. Finally, on a freezing January night, at 6:50, Lenin died. Lenin believed that death was the end. You see, he was a materialist.
He didn't believe in life after death or making people into saints. He fully intended to be buried, and that would be it. If Lenin had known what was coming next, he would have been completely astounded.
I keep thinking if I drive real slow and I take a lot of back roads, maybe I can hold on to my daughter just a little bit longer.
When you were sad and lonely.
You know you want me.
Back off, he's a killer.
Get the power of 3, the Intel Pentium 3 processor.
This is the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, these people were like family to me. Remember I met Jeannie at the company picnic?
It was the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, taking the new job was a tough decision. Deciding what to do with my 401k money was another. I didn't want to mess it up. I called T. Rowe Price. You know, you told me about the mutual funds.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, they sent me a rollover kit, you know. Took me through it step by step.
Made it easy for you.
Yeah, piece of cake.
T. Rowe Price, helping people invest with confidence for over 60 years.
It's gonna be a good job.
Yeah.
Coming up next, mummy icons, skeleton chandeliers, cadaver art from Eva Perón to anatomical artists. Bob Breyer shows you how they did it and why when Unwrapped, the mysterious world of mummies continues next on TLC.
Now meet me at the junkyard, where the competition reigns. We'll find it in the junkyard. It will never be the same. Check no ingenuity. Isn't all that easy. Teams are busy building. The invention of the day.
Junkyard Wars. Get ready. New episodes start December 6th on TLC.
Start now, you can't delay.
If you had to leave Earth, who would you miss? How would you survive? Where would you live? December 10th, you'll never look at space the same way again. Step inside man's new home among the stars. Inside the space station, a Watch with the World event. Premiering Sunday, December 10th at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific on the Discovery Channel.
Go online now and take TLC's Mummy Trivia Challenge for your chance to win $25,000. Search for clues to the world's most bizarre and revealing mummy facts to answer our trivia questions. If you know your stuff, you could wrap up $25,000. Go now to discovery.com and click on TLC. Then see how the dead are living. Unwrapped, the mysterious world of mummies, premiering Sunday, December 3rd on TLC.
The amazing story of Lenin's mummification begins with a train ride to Moscow. Thousands waited in the bitter cold for a glimpse of the man who had led Russia out of serfdom. So that everyone could see the body, party leaders made the decision to preserve Lenin's body permanently. But I think there was a hidden agenda. I think the idea was to replace religion, which has no place in communism, with Lenin. be a tough job to purge Russia of religion. For centuries, the people had turned to their religion for hope. Russians cherished their rituals with incense and chanting and gilded icons. So instead of their traditions, they would get Comrade Lenin? A suitable building had to be prepared to house Lenin's body, and the Red Army was called in. Working round the clock, in minus 30-degree temperatures to prepare the mausoleum, they were forced to blast the frozen ground. With great pomp, the body of Lenin was carried from the Hall of the Trade Unions to the mausoleum. Look closely at the pallbearers. See the one in the back with the thick black hair? That's Stalin. The body lay in state for nearly 2 months. But even in the freezing Moscow cold, it was beginning to deteriorate. Party members argued over how to preserve it. Some favored freezing, so a special freezer was ordered from Germany, but they couldn't get it operating. They didn't want to dehydrate it, like an Egyptian mummy, because that would shrivel the features. You can't have a raisin for a national icon. On March 20th, 1924, nearly 2 months after Lenin's death, a team of scientists in a secret laboratory like this one began work. They removed Lenin's internal organs, which had started to decompose. Using a process similar to what Lenin's embalmers use today, they immersed the entire body in formaldehyde, a powerful antiseptic that stops tissue breakdown. The body floated for weeks in this solution, with glycerin added to keep elasticity. Placed in his elaborate sarcophagus in his mausoleum, Lenin was forever. When I was in Moscow, Lenin's embalmers showed me something really incredible. It's not far from Lenin's mausoleum, but this was one of the Soviet Union's most closely guarded secrets during the Cold War.
I'm in a secret room, a room the world doesn't know about. It's the exact proportions of the room in which Lenin's body rests in the mausoleum. And this sarcophagus, it's a double. It's exactly the same. This is where Russian scientists worked out the techniques on other bodies that they were going to use on Lenin. Inside, same conditions, same humidity, same temperature, same lighting. Think about the effort, the expense. That's how important it was to preserve the body of Lenin.
Periodically, Lenin goes for a tune-up. I've spoken with his embalmers, but they're not about to give out the recipe for their secret sauce. But I bet one of their secret ingredients is hydrogen peroxide. Lenin's skin is very white. Still, he looks pretty good after being dead for 75 years. With the political change in Russia, there is talk of burying Comrade Lenin. After serving as an icon for the Communist Party for decades, he may have to go underground. The party's over. Mummies are incredible. From Egypt to South America, mummies are windows to the past. Our past. Think about it. You can actually look at the face of Ramses the Great, the pharaoh of the biblical Exodus. Or a baby who lived 6,000 years ago. Or you can gaze upon Lenin, a man who changed the world. Mummies are as close to a time machine as we will ever get. We'd better preserve them, or we'll miss the ride. What is it about mummies? They've been dead for thousands of years, but they still call to us. We're afraid of them, but we're drawn to them. What is their strange power? Where does this magic of the mummies come from? I've always wanted to come here. I'm going to show you something amazing. We're right in the middle of Europe, in a chapel in the tiny Czech village of Sedlec, just outside of Prague.
See that chandelier over there? It's beautiful, isn't it? But look closely. It's made of human bones, skulls, femurs, vertebrae. Everywhere you look here, death is around you. The people who built this church are still in contact with their long-dead ancestors. These are their bones. There's something powerful about this. We're shocked, we look, and we keep looking.
Places like this fascinate me. They bridge the great gap between the living and the dead. I think that's part of their power over us. These are just bones, but they still retain something of their humanity. You want to know why they built a place like this? Well, hundreds of years ago, the Black Death swept through here, killing 30,000 people. The village never got over it, so they expressed their grief in this unique way. Even the family crest of the patron of this church is made of bones, with a raven pecking out a human eye. It's macabre, but think about it. It doesn't matter if it's the bones of a plague victim who died 600 years ago, or the mummy of the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses the Great. Mummies still fascinate us. I work with mummies all the time, and I want to show you things you've never seen before. Things you might hesitate to look at. Don't be afraid. I think you'll be glad you did. Where does this power of mummies come from?
It's okay.
I think one reason we're all drawn to mummies is that they shock us. Mummies aren't always where they belong. We have always had two separate realms, one for the living and one for the dead. Call it heaven, the netherworld, or even just the graveyard. But there's a place where the dead belong, and it's not among the living. When we see a mummy in a museum, or bones of plague victims stacked in a church, it's disturbing. We're puzzled. But we're fascinated also. It's like we're children, entering forbidden territory. The local cemetery in Palermo, Italy, is a lovely place. It looks like a beautiful garden. It seems as much a place for the living as the dead. Family plots bear photographs of those buried here, as if to say, don't worry, we're all together again. There's nothing shocking here. It's where the dead belong. But just a few yards from this peaceful cemetery is another community of the dead that's not so cheerful. You really feel the unnerving power of mummies when you enter the crypts beneath the Capuchin monastery in Palermo. For centuries, the monks were buried here. Some are still dressed in their robes, now looking quite departed. But they haven't turned to dust. Soon, the townsfolk wanted the same treatment, and the catacombs began to fill up. The vice consul for the United States died here in 1911. I want to visit his mummy. Here's my man. Look, he's been dead for more than 3/4 of a century, and he still looks dignified. Great mustache. Looking around the crypt, it's almost as if the 8,000 inhabitants, afraid of being alone for eternity, banded together to form a community. There are separate sections for lawyers, monks, virgins, and babies. Even to me, the catacombs seem a bit strange, almost ghoulish. I'm pretty sure it's because of the clothes. Many of the bodies are just skeletons, dressed in their clothes from centuries ago. I think it's their clothes that gives them personality. The most recent member of the underground community, little Rosalia Lombardo, looks as if she died yesterday, but in fact, it was 80 years ago. She looks as if she's asleep. It's difficult to think of her just as a corpse. She has a power over us. We feel tender and protective of her. But there are even better preserved mummies than Rosalia. Did you know that a former First Lady is the best preserved mummy in the world? Argentina's Eva Perón is buried here, in the Recoleta Cemetery, along with the rich and famous of Buenos Aires. You may have seen the Broadway play, Evita. You've certainly heard the song, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. But let me tell you, what happened after Evita's death is even more amazing than her life. Evita, as the people called her, came to Buenos Aires from the country as a 14-year-old beauty with dreams of becoming an actress. But Evita came to real prominence when she married the future president of Argentina, Juan Perón. Because of her humble background, the poor of Argentina identified with Evita. She was one of their own, and she became their champion, establishing hospitals and schools for her shirtless ones, as she affectionately called her adoring masses. The people begged her to run for vice president, but she was stricken with cancer. And on July 26, 1952, at 8:25 p.m., Evita passed away. Evita had given her manicurist one last instruction to be carried out after her death. Get rid of the shiny red nail polish and replace it with a clear varnish from Revlon. It was as if she knew that in death she would be viewed as a saint by her people, and she wanted to look the part. Millions of her grief-stricken shirtless ones lined up for miles for a last glimpse of their beloved Evita. The Pope received 26,000 requests to make her a saint. The government declared that for 1 year after her death, only postage stamps with Evita's picture should be used. But this was just the beginning of Evita's amazing post-mortem experiences. Juan Perón had decided that the body of Evita should be preserved so the people of Argentina could view her forever. He called on Dr. Ara, a brilliant anatomist, to mummify Evita. But Ara's technique has remained a secret all these years. To find out how he did it, I had to go to northern Argentina, to the city of Cordoba, home of Dr. Pedro Olivares, the last living link to the mummification of Evita. He was Ara's student, and not only knows how Evita was mummified, he prepared a newborn infant in exactly the same way.
Gracias, gracias. Eso es el niño.
Este es el niño.
The child died more than 20 years ago, and Dr. Olivares explained that he was mummified in exactly the same way as Evita.
Dr. Olivares, por favor, ¿qué es el secreto?
Muy bien, muy bien. Desde luego, la técnica...
He explained that there are many steps, but the real secret is that all the water is removed from the body and replaced with wax. It took a year, but in the end, every cell in the body contains wax. Olivares told me that Dr. Ara used this method to prepare the mummy of Evita. Today, you can still see the handiwork of Dr. Ara at the Anatomical Museum at the Cordoba Medical School. Ara and his disciples created specimens that put Cordoba at the forefront of anatomy. But the creation that would forever link Dr. Ara with the mummification of Evita was the head of an old man. 70 years ago, this man sold newspapers in front of the medical school. And when he died, he had no family. So Dr. Ara took the body and prepared him with his amazing technique. It took a year, but now he looks as if he might open his eyes and start speaking. So when Juan Perón wanted Evita preserved forever, Dr. Ara was summoned. For months, Ara worked in secret on the body of Evita Perón in the Ministry of Labor, the CGT building, creating one of the most remarkable examples of mummification ever seen. Three years after her death, Juan Perón was overthrown in a military coup and fled into exile, leaving Evita's mummy behind. When the new regime discovered the mummy in the CGT building, it was so well preserved, they thought it might be a wax mannequin, and a medical commission was set up to determine if that thing was Evita. They cut her left ear and her fingertip to check her fingerprints. Think about it. You don't have to cut off a finger to take a print. It was as if someone wanted a relic of Saint Evita. Finally, the body was x-rayed. Satisfied that it was indeed the remarkably preserved body of Evita, the question then became what to do with it. The new government, afraid Evita's mummy would become a political icon, decided to get rid of it. But the power of Evita's mummy was so great that no one dared destroy it. Indeed, one of the generals guarding the mummy of Evita went mad and was convicted of performing unchristian acts on the body. Eventually, her body was secretly shipped to Italy. With the help of the Vatican, Evita was given the fictitious identity of an Italian widow and was buried in a grave marked Maria Maggi in Plot 86 in the Musocco Cemetery in Milan. But eventually, the political wheel turned and Evita's body was exhumed. After 10 years of being buried, she was so perfectly preserved that the gravediggers ran away screaming, "A miracle, a miracle." When Perón died in 1974, Evita's body was displayed beside her husband's. In its glass-topped casket, the body of Evita Perón looked just as it did when thousands first viewed it 2 decades earlier. Evita, the best-preserved mummy in the world, was buried with her family in the Duarte crypt in the Recoleta Cemetery in Buenos Aires, where she rests today. The Mummy of Evita shows just how strongly people can feel about a mummified body. But mummies aren't usually so glamorous. 200 years ago, a mummy so hideous was created that it outraged French society.
This presentation of Unwrapped, the mysterious world of mummies, is brought to you on TLC and TLC at Discovery.com by Intel. Get the power of 3, the Intel Pentium 3 processor.
Get the power of 3, the Intel Pentium 3 processor.
Picture this, a life without worry, where problems are quickly solved. Picture a future that's financially secure for you and the ones you love. Picture Nationwide, with auto, home, and life insurance products to protect what you hold dear, and retirement planning to help you prepare for your future. If you can picture it, Nationwide can too. Nationwide. Insurance, financial services on your side.
An equal housing opportunity insurer.
Log on and shop dsports.com to get delivery by Christmas guaranteed. From dsports.com and Dick's Sporting Goods.
On an all-new Trauma,
You're in a very bad accident.
a young man takes a 2-story dive and is left paralyzed.
It's very badly crushed here.
Surgeons attempt radical surgery to save his life. Don't miss Trauma, Life in the ER, Tuesday at 8 on TLC.
Help me meet at the junkyard, where the competition reigns. We'll fight it in the junkyard. It will never be the same. Techno ingenuity isn't all that easy. Teams are busy building the invention of the day.
Junkyard Wars. Get ready. New episodes start December 6th on TLC.
Start now, you can't delay.
Come home for the holidays with Carol Duvall and HGTV. Carol Duvall's Christmas takes you on a Yuletide tour of Carol's hometown to visit the people and places special to her. Get great holiday ideas from local craftspeople and artisans. Plus, Carol leads you through a winter wonderland and gives her fans a special Christmas gift.
Well, as promised, here we are at my house.
Carol Duvall's Christmas.
Easy holiday giving from Sterling Cut Glass, 7727 Kenwood Road.
Make this a holiday she'll never forget with diamonds from Stafford Jewelers. You'll enjoy savings on Stafford's entire collection of diamond anniversary rings, precious gold jewelry, or breathtaking diamond tennis bracelets. All on sale now during our store-wide holiday sale. Why shop at a mall jewelry store when you can save at Stafford? Stafford buys direct from the cutters and passes the savings on to you. For holiday savings, 6 months same as cash, and free layaway till Christmas, see Stafford Jewelers on Montgomery Road and on Mall Road across from a Florence Mall.